Hello there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. This is Figure Friday. In today's episode, I will be showing you the 1st Battalion 2nd Guards I've been painting using the 18mm AB figures. I'll show you the whole process of painting and then how I've based them to make them look really good for your battlefield. Now remember, if you like what you see here today, do please subscribe to my channel through the logo in the bottom right there. If you really like it, you might want to consider supporting future productions. You can do this through the links to Buy Me a Coffee or to Patreon, which you'll find in the information box below. Let's get on and see how I made the 1st Battalion 2nd Guards of 1811. You'll remember from the previous video that I have 53 18mm figures from AB purchased from Eureka Miniatures to make this one battalion. That's one mounted officer and 52 foot figures, which include 4 light infantry skirmishers. I also discussed the layout of the bases. Here is the battalion in line, forwards is towards the top of the frame. First job is to prime the metal. Now I use an airbrush to apply an acrylic grey primer. I find the airbrush is a considerably lighter coat than I get from a spray can. Of course, you can do a wash with a brush if you like. The first colour going down is the red of the tunics. The British dressed in scarlet, hence their nickname of redcoats. Don't worry if you go over bits of webbing, just make sure you get into all the cracks and crevices front and back. The next colour is blue. This is found on the cuffs and the collars. I find it goes over the red very well. It just knocks it down a tone or two. The shoulder straps are also blue. Plain straps for the centre companies, but the flank companies, the Grenadiers and the Light Company, have these larger wings on the end of the strap. Officers also get blue accents with the addition of turnbacks on their collars. The mounted officer has a blue saddle cloth. Finally, the drums are going to be blue as well. Now for some white. Here I'm going over the webbing straps. Use a small amount of a thickish white and let the relief of the figure pick up most of your paint from your brush. Remember to check for all the oddities like the standard belt on the ensigns, the drummer's accoutrements and the sword belts on the officers. On the rank and file there are 2 rows of lace across the front of the tunic. Use a very fine brush for this with very little paint on the brush. Then we have rows of lace on the cuffs. Just do a few, as from a distance no one's going to count them. For those flank companies you need to edge the blue wings on the shoulders with white and add a few lines. Again, what we're after here is a suggestion of what's there. Centre company guardsmen get a white tuft of wool at the end of their shoulder straps. The drummers have chevrons on their arms. I draw the 2 lines along the arms first, then do 3 or at most 4 chevrons between them. Don't try too hard if a bent arm here means you can't do all of it. Likewise, the 2 sergeants get chevrons on their arms. They look far apart here, but from table distance they all look fine. Next I'll paint some hair at the back of each chap's neck. They all get the same colour in my regiments. Do remember to go around the sides as well. Now a job I really don't like, piping. Just use a very fine brush with a medium thickness of paint. Remember to keep checking the brush. When you're using such little bits of paint it will dry out very quickly. You can use a tiny drop of a paint retarder if you're using acrylics. Remember to do the front and back of the collar. Now the muskets in mahogany brown. Remember to do all the little bits near the hands as well. And today my officer is mounted on a brown horse. Of course it can be any horsey colour you like. When I've painted that brown, I'll add a spot of brown to some white for this off-white sheepskin cover. Next I'll go through the battalion painting in flesh on the face and on the hands. And after that, the rolled greatcoats on their backs are painted a mid-grey. Now to another major colour, the black. First of all, the boots, and then the hats, the shakos. Again, make sure you get every bit, and do run the brush along the brim at the front. Then the backpack and cartridge boxes get their coat. Again, check at the sides as well. And don't forget the bayonet scabbard. If you want, you can paint some of the figures with black chin straps as well. The flagstaves are also painted black. Now the colonel or lieutenant colonel, he needs his horse's tackle painted all in black. Don't forget the rear straps as well. Then mix some brown into the black for the horse's tail, mane and hooves. Then the officers and the sergeants get this carmine red colour for their waist sash. All the other ranks have these linen bags in addition to their packs, and they have water bottles as well. The water bottles are painted a bright blue colour. Back to the muskets, and they get a stripe of gunmetal to pick out the barrel. There's also a spot of iron painted on the hammer of the musket. I'm using brass for the shako plate on the front of the hat. I find this needs just a touch of water to let it flow properly and to shine well. There's also a brass buckle on the crossbelt. A gold colour is used on the officers for the sword hilts, buttons and their cuff lace. White again, and now I'm going to paint in the straps on the backpacks and the slings on the muskets. The muskets are finished with steel for the bayonets. Next is the shako plume. All the centre companies get red first. The light company gets green plumes, and the grenadier company white plumes. Finally, the centre companies get white tips to the red plumes we've already painted. Now the drums. The drumsticks I'm painting black, and I've added some little dabs of gold at the front to look like a regimental badge. Well, from a distance they do anyway. Then red bands to the top and the bottom of the drum. Finally, the tensioners are painted in white. So that's all the paintwork on the figures done now. So all I need to do next is add a dark wash to everything to help bring out some of the webbing lines and creases in the models. If it looks too heavy, use water on a clean brush to dilute it, and a dry brush to pick up any excess. Remember, the wash dries quite a lot lighter, so you can go back and do extra coats if you want. Next, the colours, the flags of the battalion. I've cut these from the printed sheet from Fighting 15s. I fold them over a little excess bit of plastic to get the bend in the right place. Then a very gentle coat of the glue of your choice. I use PVA, making sure there's enough in there to grab the staff. While the glue's wet, you should make some folds in the paper to look like it's blowing in the wind. When the flags are set, you can touch up the exposed edges of the paper with a tiny spot of paint. Now I'm going to add some paint to the figure bases. Here it's kind of a mid-earth colour. Choose the colour closest to the earth tone you'll want later. Then the basing. Now I've cut the plastic base to size. I'm using 25 by 45 millimeters for a 10 figure block. I roughen up the surface with a bit of sandpaper first, using a coarse grit like 120 or 180. I also like to draw on the layout as well, just to remind me who is supposed to be going where. Then the figures go on. I use 2-part epoxy to glue them on, but you can use anything that bonds plastic and metal together. If you're using super glue, make sure the figure bases are filed flat. And before you know it, there's the battalion, and very smart too. Now, you could paint the rest of the bases now if you like, but I prefer to use some earth texture. This is a loose kind of plaster material that you can add with a small stick between the legs of the figures. Any bits you miss will be hidden by the paint we did earlier. Just work your way round as best you can. You can use a wet brush to push it into place or wipe off any spills. Just keep rinsing the brush in water. Now once my texture base has dried, I'm going to add some flock to look a bit like grass. A few dabs of white PVA here and there, not too much as this is supposed to be sun-drenched Iberia. Then drop the flock onto the base, press down in a few spots, shake off the excess and leave it to dry. Once it's dried, more excess can be blown away. And that is the battalion finished. That's it then. I think they look pretty spectacular. It was a long painting job. There's a lot of detail if you want to put it on there. If you don't, of course, you can take some shortcuts. It's entirely up to you. But I think these figures are worth that little extra bit of effort. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, do please remember to subscribe through the button in the bottom right. And do keep coming back every Friday for more Figure Fridays. See you then. Bye.